Good day, everyone. Eric from Helps. I'd like to welcome you to our Helps YouTube Live today on June 30th. Time's flying. Good to have you here. My name's Eric. I'm the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that helps seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And we'd like to welcome you to our channel. And I'll just start out with if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat feature. We'll address them there. But I'll just start out with this is someone from Oregon who wrote in, and this is what they say. I have debt drowning me. Um, so senior, my anxiety is through the roof, and I can't remember the last time I was able to sleep through the night. I'm juggling bills to attempt to pay credit. It has just proven impossible for me to attempt to continue to make these payments. I have fallen behind on my property taxes, and I need to get those caught up. I struggle to get groceries, gas, and medication. This has proven to be too much. On one of my sleepless nights, I caught you on a Jeff Hoyt seniorliving.org YouTube video. This was my first glimpse of hope that I've had in a long time. July will be the first month that I will not be making credit card payments. So a cease and desist letter could help give me some peace of mind. Social Security is my only form of income, a little bit over $1,600 a month. I'm hoping to hear from you and praying you are able to help me. That's a sweet little letter. Yeah, we're going to be able to help you. If you're like this person who's struggling with debt, that's what HELPS is here for. HELP stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. And our most important message to seniors is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, any form of retirement income is protected by federal law and state laws. It can't be taken from you. It's available for your needs, for your food and your medicine. You don't need to worry. We even explain to seniors how it's protected if someone were to sue you and get a judgment. Twice the amount of your federal benefits, such as Social Security, deposited in your checking account is automatically protected from garnishment by your bank under federal banking rules, regardless of what funds are in there or where they came from. So if you got $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 in your bank account is protected. Thanks for letting me know that you hear me well. I always worry about that. So this person from Oregon who is sleepless through the night because of worry, they don't need to worry. And if you're that person, you don't need to worry anymore. I mean, when you contact HELPS, we'll ask you some questions. We'll go over this. If you decide to enroll, we can enroll you on the phone immediately. Okay, you don't have to enroll immediately. A lot of people call us 2 or 3, 4 or 5 times before they decide to enroll. They check us out thoroughly. And then when we enroll you, we click a button and we keep you on the line. You'll get sent an email that says, welcome to HELPS. It tells you how to get us the creditors or the collectors you owe money to. All we need is a name, address, and account number. We don't need the balance. Within 24 to 48 hours, we're going to send out a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. Peace is going to come to your life. And then we represent you ongoing, not just one time, literally forever. So if you ever have a question or concern, you can always call us. If you get a new debt collection notice, let us know. We'll send out a new letter. If you're sued, we're going to contact the attorney that sued you, let them know that your income is protected. They can't do anything. We're going to call you and send you emails why you don't need to worry. So that's what we do. Okay? We don't want you to worry. So this poor guy in Oregon, yeah, we'll be able to help him. You'll be happy. Okay. So Mary says, Capital One is sending a suit my way. Received a letter from an attorney advertising debt settlement. Letter says they can seize non-exempt property. Really? Well, that's like saying if you go out on a stormy day, you could get hit by a bolt of lightning. Or if you go to Circle K at 10:07 p.m. on Friday night, you could get hit by a drunk driver. Do you live your life getting hit by a bolt of lightning? No. I live around where there's a lot of lightning. I don't worry about it. Now, and I don't hesitate by going to the store because I think I'm going to hit by a drunk driver. I mean, if it ever happened, I know what to do. But no, they're not going to seize non-exempt property. Can they? Well, the same thing. If the speed limit is 55 miles per hour and you go 56, could you get a ticket for speeding? Yes, you could. Can you? Yeah. Are you? Absolutely not. Okay. So, you know, the letter you got was an advertisement for a letter that files bankruptcy. Okay. And that's what they're trying to do. They subscribe to a service that lets them know if someone filed a bankruptcy. So Mary got this letter letting know that she's been sued. A lot of times our clients call us and they get more than one of these letters from bankruptcy attorneys, and they don't even have any idea they've been sued. Well, a bankruptcy attorney can subscribe to a service and lets them know when someone files bankruptcy in the area where they practice, so they can send out this advertisement letter to get business. Okay, so don't need to worry, Mary. I got a letter from Capital One after help cease and desist letter. They want me to verify my address, but they have been making direct offers for one half price to settle. Well, an original creditor, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act applies to debt collectors, not original creditors. Now, 7 states have an exception. So technically, they could still contact you. Normally, when we send a cease and desist letter out to a bank for a credit card, they're going to not bother you. They're not going to call you on the phone. They may send you a bill, but and then sometimes, if we send a letter out, it might take them 2 to 4 weeks before they get our letter and process it to stop the contact. Bottom line is, you do not need to worry. Okay? Yeah. And if you do worry, please call us. Okay, I'm going to read this next one. Creditors can be, this is kind of over the top. And this is a note from one of our paralegals that talked to a client, and he was from Florida, a potential client. He said he was a truck driver and he got cancer, and he was on a colostomy bag. And so when he lost his job, he called his creditors and they all agreed to lower his payments. Then when he called Midland Credit and asked for lower payments, the collector said, "You're not going to believe this. No, you are going to die. Why would we accept lower payments when we know you are going to die? Have you heard of beans? You can eat beans for 3 meals a day and pay us more money." Can you believe that? Wow. And he called one of us, and actually he spoke to one of our attorneys. And when he told him this story, he was crying. This is an older man, probably in his 60s or 70s. Terrible, terrible. Yeah, it is mean and evil. I used to think sometimes that when some debt collectors go to work, before they go to work, they give them raw steak and just kind of maybe give them a few lashes and get them worked up so they can be aggressive when they talk to people. Now, obviously, they're not all that way, but there are some that are that bad. You don't need to talk to them. When you enroll in helps, we tell you, before they get our cease and desist letter, if they happen to call you, we say, you can tell them you're represented by helps, give them their name and number, tell them not to call you anymore, and then hang up the phone. You don't need to engage in conversation with them, ever. Okay? Hmm. So here's a comment from someone on one of our YouTube videos or a YouTube video we did with another organization and explaining about helps and what we do. He says, if you if you if you created the debt, it is your responsibility to pay that back. Just because you are overwhelmed in debt and old does not relieve you of debt. Any creditor will work with you on paying it off in time with smaller payments. That's what a comment someone made to one of our videos that we did with another organization. I don't think it was one of our videos, but someone else. And I answered it. I said, some seniors find themselves in a position where they simply can't afford to pay the debt. They sometimes face paying the debt and not having enough money for food, rent, or utilities. It is not true that, quote, any creditor will work with you on paying a debt in smaller amounts. Creditors charge interest and understand that some persons, for various reasons, will not be able to pay a debt. That's one reason they charge the interest they do. Lawmakers have protected retirement income for a reason. They want you to have that money, so you've got it available. So you don't need to feel guilty if you can't pay the debt. You would pay it. I think a lot of seniors would say this: I would pay it if I could, but I simply cannot afford to pay it. Okay? And lawmakers protected this money for you for a reason. Now, if your ship comes in and things change, you can always choose to pay it later. But your income is protected. They can't touch your Social Security. You're going to be fine. Okay. So, once in a while, I'll get on the internet, on Google, I'll type in a question, you know, solutions for seniors with debt, or uh, what can a senior do if he owes debt he can't pay, something like that. And then artificial intelligence now on Google will come and give you a whole lot of stuff. Will give you some information. Occasionally they'll talk about helps, but not always. In fact, normally the answers I see on artificial intelligence, when you type in a question like that, they're not a very good answer. And why is that? They don't explain the fact that they don't include this fact. Your Social Security is protected. It's available for your needs. It can't be taken from you, even if you're sued. And you can send what's called a cease and desist letter, stop the creditors from that. Doesn't include that information. So why doesn't it include that information? After all, this is supposed to be our savior. Artificial intelligence is going to save everything. Okay, so I asked the question, why you can't depend on artificial or limitations of artificial intelligence. And this is what it came up with. It came up with actually a pretty good answer. Number one, it said lack of true understanding. Artificial intelligent models process patterns and data, but don't possess genuine comprehension or consciousness like humans do. They can't truly understand complex concepts or subjective experiences. And then the next one, which is really the key, dependence on data quality. AI relies heavily on large data sets. If the data is biased, incomplete, or of poor quality, the AI output will reflect this issue. In other words, the output will be biased, incomplete, and poor quality, leading to inaccurate or misleading conclusions. A study found that 85% of AI projects fail due to poor data quality or lack of sufficient data. So what I've explained many times is that there's almost like a concerted effort of debt collectors and debt settlement companies and debt management companies, people that give people advice on debt, to never tell a senior the fact that their Social Security and their pension is protected. It can't be taken from them. They'll suggest to them, debt management, debt settlement, different ways to pay the debt, contact credit counseling, but they leave out the fact that your income is protected, that it can't be. Why do they? If they told you that, you would know you didn't need to pay the debt, and you could have that money for and they wouldn't get paid. So they don't give you that information, and they do it purposefully. Purposefully, they do it purposefully. They don't tell you that. If they told you that, you would enroll with them. So a lot of the information they give might apply to younger persons, but not to seniors. And so what happens is artificial intelligence gathers all this data. And if there's nothing in there that says that your income is protected or very little stuff, then they're not going to emphasize that for seniors. So that's one of the problems now with Google. If you click a question, you read the artificial intelligence answer, you may not be getting the complete truth, especially when it comes to problems the seniors have in paying debt. Okay. Okay. Pharma says I struggled for years paying huge amounts on time, but after many job losses, after 50 years old, I struggle with these old bills, even running out of heating oil. Well, if you're retired on Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits, if debt you can't afford to pay, you can stop paying it. If you don't want to be harassed by creditors, call us toll free 855-435-7787. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. You're going to be fine. The nice thing about helps is when people are willing to help you or a client ongoing, it's not just one time, literally for the rest of your life. So if you ever have a question or concern, you can always call us no matter how often. Gayla asks, do your clients have good success with landlord letters? Um, well, I only hear the good success stories. I imagine there's the magic thing about a landlord letter, and I'll explain what that is if you don't know what it is. Um, we have a letter that we will give to anyone, whether they're a member of HELPS or not, that explains to a prospective landlord that even if this senior has negative entries on their credit, their Social Security, their pension, their income is protected, and it's always available to pay their debt. And it'll always be available to pay their rent. Okay? A lot of landlords don't understand that. And so if they do a credit report, and one of the reasons they do credit reports, if you have poor credit, they're thinking, well, man, this guy could get sued. He might not be able to pay his rent. We're going to have a problem. But if a landlord understands that a senior's income is protected, even if they have negative entries on their credit, the theory is they would be more likely to rent to a senior. Seniors are actually pretty good tenants. Um, so, I get a good sense that it is a good positive. Now, we also have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. After you've been part of HELPS for 3 months, you can improve your credit if you're interested in doing that. A lot of our clients don't care about that, but you can. You can improve your credit within a year and a half to 2 years, uh, and your credit is based on your recent credit history. And so the landlord letter we sent also tells you how to apply for your rent. You go to the landlord and you show them this letter and let them read it first, and then they can tell you if they've got corporate procedures that would prevent them from renting to you if you have really negative credit. And that could save you the application fee. Okay. It tells you how to do it too. You want to come, you know, you want to make the landlord feel that you understand that you would be a good tenant. Okay. And there's a lot of other reasons why artificial intelligence can't be accurate. One thing is artificial intelligence doesn't have common sense. Okay, doesn't have common sense. Not to say I have common sense, but I've been an attorney for 40 years, and I know what the law is, but then I know what happens in the real world too. And a lot of times it's completely different. Okay, and if you just operate on the function of what the law says specifically, and you don't realize the big world out there, you can make a mistake. It's like you get so focused on a tree and just look at that tree, and all you see is that bark. And all of a sudden, you don't realize, well, there's other trees out there. There's some brush out there. There's some clouds poking through the trees. There's a whole different world. If you just focus on that one thing, you can easily make a mistake or get led astray. Okay. So glad to have you here. Put your questions in the chat feature if you have any. I'll go on. This person contacted us. They're from Texas. The age of 62, and they only get $1,000 a month in Social Security disability. Okay, look what I'm going to say here. It says I'm currently enrolled in a debt management program called National Debt Relief. I'll talk about them a little bit more in a second. And I'm still struggling financially. I have credit card debt and medical debt. I really need some help. My money goes everywhere and everyone but to me anymore. I'm on Social Security disability. I'm permanently disabled. Can someone please reach out and help me before this debt program drafts another payment from my checking account? You can stop it. You can call them on the phone and stop it. Call debt management and tell them to return any money they have owed that they haven't taken for their fees. These companies, if they don't tell you and you're a senior that your income is protected, that no one can touch your Social Security, they're essentially scammers. They're not giving you the complete truth. Okay? Now, you might say, well, Eric, I don't believe you that they're scammers, that they don't tell me the complete truth. Well, here's an article from National Debt Relief. I think it's from April, just recent. Let's look at it real quick. Here it is. Adults and what you can do about the reality of debt for older adults. That's what we are, right? Older adults, and what you can do about it. See what they talk about the problem. In fact, half of Americans aged 55 to 78 say they're overwhelmed by debt and worry they'll never be able to pay it off. And okay, and you're not the only one facing this. A new survey commissioned by National Debt Relief and conducted by Talker Research offers a clear picture of the research gathered, and it talks about the debt problems. Okay, so now see what they're trying to do. They're trying to set themselves up as they're really experts, and they're going to be able to help you. They did it. They financed a research. Well, let's see what they say in their research. Well, they say that there's a lot of problems for seniors in debt. But let's see what they say. What debt looks like: credit card debt, mortgage debt, medical debt, auto loan debt. And they explain why it's so hard to get ahead. Okay, that's wonderful. Let's see what the solution is. Impact of retirement and savings. Okay, you're not powerless. What you can do. Okay, and say 76% saying they don't believe Social Security will be enough to support them. Okay, so far, what haven't they said? They haven't mentioned yet that your income is protected, that if you're on Social Security or pension, no one can touch it. No, they haven't mentioned a thing about that. Let's see what they say. Assess your debt honestly. Okay. Well, let's see if their article is honest. Pick a debt strategy. So they're talking about paying it off. The snowball method and the avalanche method. Explore debt relief, debt consolidation, debt settlement, credit counseling, bankruptcy. Final thoughts. That's it. Okay. And they're a debt settlement. They're a for-profit debt settlement company. They didn't once tell you that your income was protected. Not once. Not once. We get a lot of calls from people that are with National Debt Relief. And we'll ask them, did they tell you that when you enrolled that you're in? No, they never told me that, Mr. Olsen. They're not the only one. There's, I don't know if there's hundreds of them, but there's scores of these companies out there. Okay, let's see if we, okay. Okay, so this person contacts us from Utah. It looks like they first talked to me back, uh, gosh, just a week ago. Then they called back, spoke to one of our other attorneys. Says we went over things in a bank account, discussed, and also emailed our how article on how bank accounts are protected from garnishment because they had a judgment. Um, they have a credit union account and they're buying an RV through the credit union. Also has a $500 credit card, both of which she wants to keep. Discussed that if she ever changes her mind, she should have her Social Security directly deposited into another account with maybe the one with her husband. And they don't have to keep the RV if they don't want to. If they decide later on that they can't afford it, they can let it go back. And then they enrolled with helps. They have 30,000 in credit card debt and it looks like 80,000 in medical debt. They're going to be okay. Okay. This person contacts us from the great state of Louisiana. I am unable to pay my credit card debt. I retired last year with only Social Security income. With all the interest and fees, I just can't pay them. I need some help. Well, okay, you're retired, you're getting Social Security. That's your only income. You don't need to pay the Social Security. You don't need to pay the credit card debt anymore. And if you're worried about being harassed by the creditors, contact helps. Give us the name, address, account number. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. Okay? If you ever have a question, you can always call us with questions. So Lily asks, is Direct Express safe place for Social Security and pension deposits? Absolutely. Now, I'm not sure if you can get a pension deposit in Direct Express, but I think you can. I don't know. I definitely Social Security deposited there. Yeah. What Direct Express card is it's like a debit card. Okay. It's like a little debit card where your Social Security goes on, and some people have a problem with bank accounts. Maybe they have a problem with for whatever reason. And if you have a Direct Express card, then you just operate off of that, not a bank account anymore. Now, the only problem with Direct Express is that, excuse me, you might get charged a little fee if you withdraw cash too many times out during the month. And then sometimes a landlord won't take a, they'll want a check or they don't take a debit card. But Direct Express card is a great way to go. Okay. So this person contacts us from Florida. Um, they're again with some debt consolidation company paying $400 a month. Didn't help them any. They got served with a lawsuit last week. And then she recently found out that she has cancer. And they're married, but the debt is in her name. So they're buying a home. They have a home equity line of credit. And we explained that, yeah, the creditor isn't going to, she could enroll in helps. The wife could enroll in helps by herself. Husband doesn't need to be part of it. If he has credit cards that he's current on, he could keep making those payments. If they own the home jointly with survivorship rights, which it looks like they do, if by chance she were to pass away before her husband, then her property will automatically go to her husband. And if someone had sued in the interim and gotten a judgment, the the lien on the property is going to go away. Even if she needed to sell the property, they live in Florida, They have an unlimited homestead exemption. They can sell the property and keep all the money from the proceeds of the sale. Not going to have any issues. She doesn't have to worry about the debt. Okay. So we'll talk to anyone, wherever you live. We help people in all 50 states. We don't give legal advice. We give legal information. The basis of our information is accurate, and we're going to be able to tell you what the law is so you don't need to worry. Okay, this person contacts us from Alabama. I just turned 80 this year. I was working a little part-time job, but I've not worked at all this year. I have 3 credit cards that I can no longer pay. My Social Security is just under $1,200 a month, and that's all I get. Well, you don't need to worry about paying it. Now, if you're someone like this that just gets Social Security, maybe a pension, if you can't pay the debt, you don't need to worry. You can stop paying it. If you don't want to be harassed, you can call us. We can go over this with you. If you decide to enroll, when we represent you, we're going to send what's called a cease and desist letter out to these debt collectors, and they're going to leave you alone. They have to communicate with us and not you. If you ever have a question or worry, you can always call us. Don't want you to worry. Okay, here's one. I was kind of pleased to hear this one. Someone from Ohio called us, and this is what they said. They said, the Discover Card people gave me the referral to you just over a month ago. I watched your information video. I want to proceed with getting your assistance as soon as possible. Thank you so very much. Well, I forwarded that to the other attorneys here at Helps. It looks like someone doing collections for Discover is a rogue agent for Discover, because normally they would not tell people about Helps. But this person did. They know about us. Creditors are learning about us more and more. We're all over the internet now. But this person, the debt collector for Discover, probably told him, he said, you know, they were probably telling them that they were a senior, their income was protected. Normally they wouldn't tell them that. They're not obligated to tell them that. But this debt collector for Discover told him you might want to call this law firm called Helps. They'll be able to help you. Okay. Well, that's kind of sweet. There are some good debt collectors out there. Not very many, but there are some. So Mrs. H asked, so when people that live in an unlimited homestead state, that actually is what's protecting the home from debtors and have it being taken by creditors in the future? Well, no, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors, if they sue you and get a judgment, to ever take your home. Even if you have equity in the home, over a certain amount is protected by your state law. Okay, they just don't do it for a number of reasons. States have different laws that protect equity in a home. Some states have unlimited protections. Florida, Texas, Kansas, probably Oklahoma, a few other states. And then some have large protections. Um, California, I think it's 700,000 in most counties now. Depends on the state where you live. What do I mean by an equity? That's how much the home is worth less what you owe, the difference. That's your equity. Okay. Uh, but if you have a home, maybe the homestead exemption is 50,000 in the state where you live, and the home is free and clear, maybe it's worth 150,000. You have 100,000 equity. Does that mean that if someone sues you and gets a judgment, they're going to take the home? No, they don't do that for a lot of different reasons. If they were to try, which they won't, but if they were, we'd be able to give you directions what to do. But we don't want you to worry. A Discover collection agent with a heart. Wow. Yeah, that's true. When I first started Helps back in 2012, down below in my when we send letters, these cease and desist letters out to the collectors, I said something that that we don't sue debt collectors. That we thought most debt collectors follow the law and stuff like. I was hoping that debt collectors would have a heart, and they would maybe tell seniors that, hey, their income is protected, like this Discover debt collector would. Well, I think we've taken that language out of my. It's not on my signature anymore in our emails, and we've actually hired an attorney with the intention that we will be suing some debt collectors here. You know, some of them don't follow the law. There's just not enough attorneys that sue these guys when they break the law. So we need to start doing it. But I took it out. I was too optimistic when I started helps thinking that people would do the right thing. Same thing with bankruptcy attorneys. I went to bankruptcy attorneys have conventions every year, big conventions, you know, hundreds of bankruptcy attorneys. Well, I had a booth for 4 or 5 years, and I was talking to all these bankruptcy, telling them about, because a lot of these seniors, I did 30, 40,000 bankruptcies before I started helps. A lot of these guys at these conventions knew who I was. And I told them about helps, and you know, just if a senior comes to you and they don't need to file bankruptcy, tell them about helps. Well, do you think we got very many referrals from bankruptcy attorney? No, the only one we got a lot of referrals from was my old firm, and they, you know, you ever hear of karma? They've definitely got karma because in the state, they file 1/4 of all the bankruptcies in the state where they're headquartered at. And that's a lot because they give accurate information. They tell people the truth. They tell them when they need to file bankruptcy and when they don't. And they'll tell them about helps if they need it. So Doris asks, Eric, can a creditor try to garnish the Direct Express card with the direct deposit? No, no, no. I've never seen a Direct Express card garnished ever. Can you please give the law protecting Social Security income when it started? 1935. Okay. Well, you can get a form. Okay. So Dottie is saying, you know, I can't quote the law, but it's you can Google and search it and get it. It's really easy to find. We have an email that gives all these laws, the laws that protect Social Security, the laws that protect, you know, pensions, you know, VA benefits, stuff like that. Um, you know, but it's protected. And then she's also asking Form 982. Well, a lot of that. Okay, if you owe a debt, you might get a form called 1099-C, which says it's a creditor is required to send that to the IRS if the debt is over $600. They don't always do it, but and it tells the IRS that you didn't pay this debt, and therefore the IRS says that this should be counted as income. Well, many of the seniors that we represent, probably a vast majority, aren't even required to file taxes. Maybe their only income is Social Security. You're not required to file taxes. Or they may get a little bit of extra income, but it's not enough that requires them to file taxes. So you don't need to worry if you got a 1099-C. The IRS isn't going to do anything. And why wouldn't they do anything? I think the IRS knows if they did anything, if they said they were going to try to collect from you, you could get on what's called currently not collectible status, not have to pay the tax. But if you do file taxes and you do get a 1099-C, there's a form called 982 if your debt exceeds your assets, basically. So if you got $100,000 worth of asset, oh, let's say you got $100,000 worth of debt, or let's make it more, $20,000 worth of debt, but you're just renting where you live and you have an old car and you got $5,000 worth of assets, you're what's called insolvent. You can file 982, Form 982, and there's the second box you check is I'm insolvent, there's no tax. But even if you did owe a tax and you're modest or lower income, you get on currently not collectible status, you don't need to worry about it. We just don't have a problem with seniors owing taxes on 1099-Cs. Now, I'm not telling people they shouldn't pay their taxes, but if but but you know, IRS does follow the law, and if you do qualify for currently not collectible status, you don't have to pay your tax. Okay. Uh, Please ask the earlier question about T-bills. Uh, Treasury bill? You're talking about some type. I've never heard of that being garnished. Okay. You know, about the only thing a creditor will garnish if they get a judgment, if they happen to know where you bank, they might try to garnish the bank account. But you should understand too that a lot of times they don't even know where you bank. There's no place they can go to find out where you bank. Now, the only reason they might know where you bank is if you've been there for a long time. Why are the creditors trying to garnish bank account with direct deposit? Well, they don't know where you got your money from. That's why. And a lot of it's just kind of like artificial intelligence, but let me be clear. Our clients that get sued, we send a letter to the creditor, to the attorney that sued you, let him know your income is protected, that it's Social Security, pension, disability. A lot of them don't bother trying to garnish because it's a waste of their time. Okay. Resurgent Capital Services called me, and when I started to tell them to call helps, she said they don't have to talk to you. Well, they don't have to talk to us if they don't want them. But if we sent them a letter, a cease and desist letter, then they cannot talk to you. Resurgent Capital Services is a debt collector. Okay. I told them if you don't talk to them, I won't talk to you. Good. You did the right thing, Eric. But if you haven't given us that creditor or that debt collector, give it to us. We'll send them a cease and desist letter. Could the original creditor provide the banking information? Yeah, I suppose they could. If it's turned over to a collection agency and they end up suing you, they might be able to find it that way. I'm just telling you that I don't see it as a problem. But to prevent that, that's why we tell our clients if you're sued, just make sure you keep the balance in your bank account less than twice the amount of your Social Security or federal benefit. If you get, you know, federal retirement or VA benefit, that's part of federal benefit, or a post office retiree or a railroad employee, a railroad employee, retired person. Your pension. Those jobs are all federal pensions. Okay, federal, and twice the amount is protected. Okay, this guy calls us. He says, I don't know if he emailed us. I need help with Cash America today. They keep bothering me. Now they're a high interest lender, kind of like almost like a payday loan. Okay, they keep bothering me. I lost my hearing, and the only way I can give you more information is through email. Well, if you lost your hearing, that's kind of nice. You don't have to talk with Cash America. Also, I reside in a rehab center and whatever. Uh, uh, if necessary, we can help people through email. But most of the time, we do it over the phone, and we can enroll you over the phone, and it doesn't take that long. We just ask some basic questions. Okay. Are CalPERS pensions protected? California protect? Absolutely. I don't care. Your pension is protected. There's a federal law passed in 1974 called ERISA, called Employment Retirement Income Security Act. Probably the majority of pensions are protected under ERISA. But there are some pensions that aren't protected under ERISA. But if they're not protected under ERISA, they're going to be protected under state law. And I'm pretty sure CalPERS is protected. I know it's protected, but it probably protected under state law. Maybe both. But so no, you're not going to lose your pension. You don't need to worry about that. Miss H says, how often do the creditors check your bank account once they know they can't take your protected money? Do they check it once a month, weekly, or do I know how often? Well, I think you're running off of old information. I'll tell you why. When I was a young attorney, back in 1978, back then the banks, you could call a bank and you could ask them. And I know because when I was in law school, I clerked for a law firm and I did what's called commercial collection. So I learned a little bit about the collection industry when I was in law school. I learned quite a bit because they turned that whole thing over to me. Now I wasn't collecting from consumers like grandma and grandpa, but I was from businesses. But it's the same concept. And if you got a judgment against someone, you could call the bank and you could say, I got a check here for $800. I want to know if that will clear. And then the bank would say, yeah, that will clear. And then I knew that I could garnish them and I get the money. I would say, no, it wouldn't clear. So I knew then that if they didn't have enough money. So I wanted to make sure. But banks won't do that. If you think you could ever call a bank and find out if someone had in their account, it's never going to happen. Bank ain't going to talk to anyone nowadays. No. So to answer your question, the only way they can check it is by actually serving a writ of garnishment. And I don't see them doing it multiple times. They might do it once, maybe. Statistically, probably unlikely. And then when they do it and they find out there's nothing in there, then they just give up. It's not worth their time. Okay? We used to, and I think we still do have a letter. Sometimes we'll send out to a creditor that does a garnishing saying, hey, you tried to garnish this person's money. Just to remind you that their income is Social Security. It's all protected in there. You're kind of wasting your time. When Helps was new, we had that letter. We used to send. I'm not sure if we send it out anymore. If we don't send it out, the reason we don't send it out is because if they garnish them, they're just not going, and they're not going to get anything. They're just going to stop trying. They don't do it anymore. So this person calls us from Michigan. Hello, my name is. I called a few days ago, but I don't think I've gotten a call back. I need help because I have creditors that are taking me to court and suing me. I live on Social Security. The reason I couldn't pay these bills was because I got cancer. Couldn't work. Not only, and it made it very hard for me. And I've been dealing with cancer since 22. So if you could please call me, I really need help. I already have a summons that I have to answer. I would have paid these bills if I could have done it, but I can't. I can't do it. And then they give us all their contact information. And they say, P.S. I make less than $1,000 a month. I can't pay anyone anything, so I can tell you more if you give me a call. And we probably already called this person. Oh, we did. We called them. Looks like Wednesday or Thursday last week. It looks like she got another lawsuit, another summons. She's a cancer survivor. She can't afford to pay the bills. And we talked to her about what to do. It's difficult for her to hear at times. It looks like she enrolled with helps. We're going to help her so she doesn't have to deal with these creditors anymore. If any of this indicates that you think you might need our help, be sure and call us. That's what we're here for. You won't regret it. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. So this person contacts us from Arkansas. Okay, this is a long one, but they're getting Social Security, not very much. And wife is getting a little bit of disability from California. And they have credit card debt from a long time ago. And they have a bank account and they use their debit card. They're both in their 70s. They can't get a job. They're not able to work. And a friend rents them a little place attached to their home where they live. And they've tried to make it into a nice little home for themselves. Family and friends take care of each other. And they've had some dental issues. And they've also, now this is, however, I keep receiving letters from the IRS claiming that I owe them $50,000 for a tax payment from some work I did back in 2016. They claim my payment to them was short and that my bookkeeper missed something. The bookkeeper's no longer in business, and they're worried. They don't have access to the records. They're worried about the money they owe. As the world falls around us and the economy continues to implode, it's mental warfare when the letters come. Mentally exhausting, really. I worked hard for over 40 years to raise a family and maintain a lower middle income home and life. I don't have the emotional or mental strength to attack the past. My health is good for a younger 70 something old person, but I'm slower now. I'd like to move my wife and myself into a house with a bathtub and a kitchen. We cook on a camping stove. I'd like to find out if I need to address the IRS debt and how to proceed if I need to, while protecting ourselves from government oversight. Well, okay. Their only income is Social Security. Unlike the IRS is going to do anything. The worst the IRS would do is say they intend to offset 15% of your Social Security if you owe IRS taxes. They're unlikely to do that. I don't see them doing it if your only income is Social Security. They don't do it. Now, if they were, they wouldn't do that for 60 days. That would give you plenty of time to contact the IRS and get on what's called currently not collectible status. So, and then the other thing too, if you owe taxes, there's a 10-year statute of limitations for the IRS. If you owe taxes to the state, they can't collect from you. So for a lot of reasons, this person doesn't need to worry. And we're going to call them and tell them that. But if they do owe debt and they're worried about it and they don't want to be harassed by these creditors, we're going to give them that information. We're going to tell them how to get on currently not collectible status if they want to do it ahead of time. But a lot of times you don't need to, because I think the system with the IRS, if the IRS can see that you're only getting Social Security, maybe a little bit of extra money, they don't even bother trying to push it. Okay, they may continue to send you notices, but they're not going to try to collect from you. Once again, they're not. We don't see them garnishing bank accounts. We see them sending letters saying they intend to offset 15% of Social Security, and even that's very rarely. And then if they were to do that, they can't do that for 60 days, which gives you time to apply for currently not collectible status with the IRS. So this person's going to be okay. And if you're listening to me, you're going to be okay. Call us if you have a question. I don't think there's any issue that we can't give you information on, and it's going to be positive. Don't be scared to call us. And there's never any pressure to enroll in helps. The cost is minimal. Um, Example would be, it might be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, free thereafter, $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months, free thereafter. Or if your income is low enough, the fee is going to be waived. We want this to work for you. Remember, you could stop paying these other creditors that you owe money to. If you got a timeshare, you don't have to pay it. We're going to, if you've got a car that you're upside down on that you don't want to keep, you can let it go back. If you have an RV you can't afford, you stop paying it. It's going to get repossessed. They're going to sell it. You're going to owe some money. You're not going to have to pay it. You don't need to worry. Mrs. H, you're right. A lot of people that work for the IRS are nice. Yeah, they are. A lot of times people can call the IRS on the phone and get on currently not collectible status over the phone. This person contacts us, says, gosh, time flies. I just watched a YouTube video featured an interview with Kaisa Jansen. She's one of the attorneys that helps. Very informative. I do have a question though. I'm 66. I just filed for Social Security benefits and Medicare, but I'm planning to work a while longer. My biggest concern is that I still have a student loan dating back to 2009 that I'm paying on. I still owe about $60,000. I don't really see how I'll ever be able to pay these off after retirement without losing a huge part of my retirement savings. I know student loans are a different animal, but would this debt be treated differently than other debt for a retired individual? Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot. If you have a student loan, back on, I think, May 5th, the administration was going to start collecting on student loans and offsetting 15% of Social Security. And then earlier this month, they announced that they're going to stop that. They're not going to do that. And I don't know how long that's going to be stopped for. I got a feeling it's going to be stopped for a long time. And if it does start, hopefully by then the government will get its acting gear and they'll have a process in place that lower income or modest income seniors can, like the IRS, they can get on a program where they pay very little or nothing for the past due student loan. So you don't need to worry about that student loan. Okay, this hour has flown, but this is Monday, which means that we have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays to talk some more. Same time. If I haven't answered your question, you can put it in the comment section. Please press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and you can always call us toll free, 855-435-7787. 855 helps us or helps US, and we'll talk to you, go over your situation. Please have a good day. I like the channel too. Thanks for all your support and all the nice comments you made today. And I will talk to you tomorrow. God bless. Have a great day. Bye.